workers from Tswana land or Venda land or Zulu land that come to work in South Africa. To the guest workers in Europe. Because it's not only the black workers from Tswana land or Venda land or Zulu land that come to work in South Africa. The citizens of independent African countries come to South Africa to look for work for the simple reason that their own countries can't employ them. You have more or less 90,000 Malawians working in this country. And if we were to say to Malawi tomorrow, and we've never had anything to do with Malawi whatsoever, it's a country, as you know, situated far away from us. If we were to say to them tomorrow, I'm awfully sorry, I can't accommodate your people any longer, you must take them back, their economy will be very, very seriously hurt. The same applies to Lesotho, an independent country, member of UNO. If we were to say to Lesotho, we are sorry, we can't employ their 105,000 people working in this country at the moment, you can well imagine what will happen to the economy of Lesotho. Well, the same applies to Botswana, and the same applies to Swaziland, and the same applies to any other of the African countries who come to South Africa to look for work.
Well, but Mr. Foster, what you are saying is either a commentary on the paradise of South Africa or on the misery of the countries they flee from.
No, it's not a question of misery either, or a paradise either for this matter. It is simply that as far as the whole of Africa is concerned, it's got a backlog in development. To understand that, again, one must look at their history. But the point is, and I'm not saying it in a derogatory sense at all, but for generations to come, on account of the fact that they multiply by over 3%, as compared with ours of little over 1%. For generations to come, their difficulty will consequently be that they cannot create sufficient avenues of employment. And therefore, for generations to come, and I want to make it very clear that I'm not saying it in a derogatory sense at all, but in a practical, realistic sense, their main export will be labor, because they can't employ their own people. And it so happens that until that time, that they have developed to such an extent that they can employ their own people, they will be forced to look to South Africa and other countries to employ their people whom they cannot employ themselves.
Honestly, interviewers back in those days were literally just wanting to hear themselves talk. And they believed that they were saying facts, honestly. There were honest, important questions that needed to be asked just from this statement alone. The Tswana land and the Zulu land and the Venda lands that he's talking about are the areas which white people placed black people in. Basically, they displaced millions of black South Africans into their areas of Tswana land and Zulu land, what they thought of, what we should be thinking and acting and behaving. And see how they separated those lands from South Africa. Like literally South Africa is their own paradise. So how can black South Africans come into South Africa when they are already into South Africa?
Independent African countries come to South Africa to look for work for the simple reason that their own countries can't employ them. You have more or less 90,000 Malawians working in this country. And if we were to say to Malawi tomorrow, and we've never had anything to do with Malawi whatsoever, it's a country, as you know, situated far away from us. If we were to say to them tomorrow, I'm awfully sorry, I can't accommodate your people any longer, you must take them back, their economy will be very, very seriously hurt. The same applies to Lesotho, an independent country, member of UNO. If we were to say to Lesotho, we are sorry, we can't employ their 105,000 people working in this country at the moment, you can well imagine what will happen to the economy of Lesotho.
Oh, yes, I can imagine what will happen to the economy of the people of Lesotho. Their fate will be in a similar link to the people of Zimbabwe. I mean, white South Africans to this day still do this. Are we even quick to forget that apartheid South Africa went into Malawi, Angola, Zimbabwe, literally the southern region, to bring about their collapse of their developing countries, because you did not want them to develop economically, so that you would steal them and bring them here so that you can access cheap labor as usual. So it had nothing to do with their economy collapsing, because their economy collapsed the minute you brought about apartheid state in their areas. Their economy also collapsed even to this day, because they still owe those apartheid debts that they cannot afford, because they wanted to protect themselves from you. So those people came here to work, mostly not because of their free will. Nobody in their right state of mind would want to leave their home, and some of them died here. They should be acknowledged just as much as we acknowledge black South Africans who worked in Johannesburg mines. They are just as important. And I guess this is why also I talked about the same thing just a few days ago, that we cannot claim that one group of people built a certain area, because it was not just them. White South Africans just wanted to cause as much chaos amongst black South Africans and other black Africans amongst ourselves that we wanted to fight for scraps basically. You happened, that's why they cannot employ them till this day. They cannot develop an economy that's sustainable for their people, because you happened, as always, you are there in the midst of all problems, and then you want to see yourselves as problem solvers for an economy that's beneficial to you. I mean, even to this day, they still use the same logic. If we would include all people, if we would do this, the economy of South Africa would collapse, not telling us that the economy is collapsing every single day. Kahle, you just want to hear yourself blab. You don't want to tell the truth. This is where we are collapsing. You don't want to tell the people that we are still operated by you, we are still controlled by you, and our opinions are still censored by the same people who still censored us a long time ago. And that the ANC is doing major of your cosplaying. Every mist of corruptions that humankind can think of, you are there. You are the center of it, because you're so good at destruction.